Good afternoon. Let's do some business. We are doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons right here. We get right down to business with the News Driven Hour right after Ben Shapiro and Tom Looney's excellent news and traffic updates. And we do this just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money live on the air on 790 KBC. Streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com, and you're on demand. Mottek On Money podcast at kbc.com, Apple iTunes, and all your favorite podcast platforms. Stocks ending the day higher today as Wall Street took in the big announcement over the weekend, President Biden withdrawing from the 2024 presidential race. Investors also looking ahead to earnings from the big tech companies, including the Magnificent Seven. A couple of those big names will be reporting this week. Tech stocks leading the gains today. Coming out of the mega cap tech companies last week, which turned into a full-scale retreat that saw the S&P 500 racking up its worst weekly performance since April. Today, the Dow closing higher by 128 points. The S&P 500 moved up 59, and the NASDAQ also in the plus column today. Let's bring up the latest here on the NASDAQ close. It did move higher today by, drum roll please, 59 points. The Russell 2K small cap also moving higher by 35 points. The yield on the 10-year note now at 4.26%. Oil prices holding the ground at the lowest levels we've seen since mid-June. Looks like concerns now surrounding the outlook for demand and prospects for even higher oil production. The improved prospects of a President Donald Trump victory in the 2024 election price negative for oil, as he has said he plans to support production increases to increase energy independence and lower prices, according to some analysts talking to MarketWatch today. We did see the price of oil in New York pulling back 24 cents to 78 and change. And it looks like crude oil in London, the international benchmark, settling at 82.40, down 23 cents. The price of gold today pulling back again, down to $12.10 to $23.87 an ounce after hitting a record high just about a week ago, above $2,400. The fallout from the massive outages because of the CrowdStrike botched security update on Friday grounded flights, impacted retailers, call centers, 911 emergency systems. CrowdStrike apparently doesn't have to shell out anything more than a simple refund, according to the cybersecurity company terms and conditions, but expect a lot of lawsuits over this fiasco, which has such a tremendous impact. In the meantime, disorder in the courts in L.A. As you heard Ken Jeffries report, the Los Angeles County Superior Court, the biggest trial court in the United States, was closed today as it looked to recover from a ransomware attack, we're told, on its computer systems. The attack was detected Friday. Does not appear to be related to the CrowdStrike software update. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about all of that with our legal eagle, Royal Oakes, legal analyst, longtime analyst here on 790 KBC, also co-host of the Too Many Lawyers podcast. The changing political winds have businesses and investors adjusting their sails. Big difference in tax policies, for example, between the Republicans and Democrats, with former President Trump vowing to lower taxes if he's president again. Democrats under President Biden vowing to raise taxes. And now the potential policies of Vice President Kamala Harris now under the microscope, the presumed Democratic Party frontrunner for president. Now that President Biden has announced his decision to stand down in the upcoming election. I'll talk about that with Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, the epic political news this week. Joining us now for our occasional Frankenstein conversation, the one and only Ben Stein, financial and political commentator, author, attorney, economist, game show host of Win Ben Stein's Money. And yeah, that Ben Stein, famous for playing the economics professor in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off in one of the most famous scenes in American cinema. Ben Stein, thank you very much for taking the call this afternoon.
My great pleasure, sir.
Give us your reaction, first of all, to President Biden saying he's out.
Well, I think it's the best thing he's ever done. I mean, he's a guy who's not a person of a terribly good character, and he went for decades not acknowledging his own granddaughter, and his certainly, although one of his sons died a war hero, God bless his soul. But the others really have shown very poor upbringing. But I think his getting out has been a distinguished thing, and he had to do it. All the big powers within the Democrat Party told him he had to do it. You're out, pal. You're out. So there you are. And now what happens? Because the amazing thing is, with all that's happened, it's amazing Mr. Trump is only 2 percentage points ahead in the national polls. That's not the same as the swing state polls, which are much more important in determining who actually gets to be president. But it's amazing to me that the Democrat Party is so strong and so diffused that even with all that's going on, Mr. Trump is not ahead by much.
On the air live with the one and only Ben Stein, reading a report from the New York Post today. It says operatives at the various highest levels of the Democratic Party threatened Joe Biden with forcibly removing him from office unless he stepped down, according to sources talking to the paper. What they report is the well-orchestrated palace coup to stop the faltering president seeking re-election has been in place for weeks, but stubborn President Biden fought against it every step of the way. A source close to the Biden family talking to the paper today. Of course, he is still in office and has not resigned, but there are calls on the Republican side for his resignation or invoking that constitutional amendment, since they say if he's not fit to stand for re-election, he may not be fit for office. What are your thoughts about what's just happened here?
Well, I think he's out. I mean, anything fussing about whether he's out today or tomorrow or yesterday, that's just fussing. It means nothing. He's out. He's gone. Now the question is, who are the Democrats going to put up? Kamala Harris seems like a lovely woman. Every time I've seen her on TV, she's giggling and flashing a kind of crazy smile. But she must have something. I mean, she was Attorney General of our glorious state, and so she must have some brains somewhere in her body. I've never seen any sign of them, but she must have them somewhere. But I don't think she can get the nomination. Who can get the nomination? I'm not sure. People are saying it's going to be our glorious governor, Gavin Newsom. I don't see much in the way of brains coming from him either. Mr. Trump, it seems to me, now has the royal road to the nomination wide open to him. Will he get it, or will there be something new that trips him up? I don't know. It's a question of who's counting the votes. Republicans have the most popular candidate, but who counts the votes? If the Democrats are counting the votes, can we count on them to give us a straight count? I'm not sure. There have been unfortunate occasions in the past where very convincing people have said they're not giving us a straight count. Will they give us a straight count this time? I sure hope so. But you just don't know.
All right, we're certainly in uncharted territory in many, many ways, and the fact is, what, about 14 million people voted for Joe Biden in this election. Now he's off the ballot here. How's this all going to work out with the Democratic convention coming up pretty quickly? And we haven't seen anything like this certainly in decades. You had a front row seat back during the Nixon Ford days, right? So give us your professional opinion as to how this is going to play out.
Well, there was no question in the Nixon Ford days that Ford was going to get the nomination. I mean, yes, there was some talk about, I believe it was Nelson Rockefeller. I'm not sure who else, but Nelson Rockefeller. He was a romantic daredevil. He had other things on his mind. I don't see how anybody can conceivably take the nomination away from Mr. Trump at this point. Although it's an odd world out there. I think Mr. Trump is going to win the nomination for sure. We've already got that, so that's done. I think he's going to win the election because the swing states are way ahead in his direction, and that's what's going to determine who gets the presidency. What then happens in terms of what he's going to do? Yes, he's going to close the border. Okay, I hope that works. Yes, he's going to do something that's supposedly going to clamp down on inflation. What that's going to be, I'm sure I don't know. I watched his speech with rapt attention, and when he said he's going to stop the inflation starting on day one, I kept thinking, I hope so, brother, but I don't know what you think you're going to do. But let's see. I mean, it's never been done before that someone could do it in one day. My father probably came the closest to it in the Nixon days when he was head of the government agency which was in charge of stopping inflation simply by ordering wage price controls. Can that be done again? I'm not sure. It might be able. It didn't work out that badly in the Nixon days. I mean, people think it was a disaster, but it wasn't. It didn't work out great by any means, but they could try it. But it's never worked out for long periods of time, and it won't this time either. So, well, what is going to happen? I mean, there's just a hell of a lot of uncertainty, and yet, amazingly, Frank, the stock market is not doing that badly. It had a couple of bad days after a whole lot of really great days. Unemployment is virtually nil. Wages are doing quite well. They're not perfect by any means, but quite well. There doesn't seem to be much fear in the air. The real crisis is that the generation under me, and perhaps under you, although you're a lot younger than I am, where are they going to live? Where is the American dream going to come true? Where is the American dream of a house with a white picket fence and a nice green lawn? Where is that going to come true? What's going to happen to the generation after mine? Where's that American dream gone to? And that's just not trivial. That's serious.
Yep. Well, as all this political drama plays out, as you've noted, we're just little boats on the water bobbing up and down, taking the ride here with the financial markets mercifully moving higher in the face of all this. And fast forward to today's drama on Capitol Hill with the head of the Secret Service getting a grilling before lawmakers, expressing some serious anger over the security lapses that allowed an attempted assassination of former President Trump at the campaign rally just a little over a week ago. What is your reaction? We haven't been a while since we've chatted behind live microphones. Your reaction to the attempted assassination of the president and his, of course, GOP speech at the convention, and now fast forward to the Secret Service head getting a grilling today.
Well, it's an amazing thing. We used to have in America that didn't have this kind of thing. We didn't have a world where if you disagreed with the administration, a prosecutor would impanel a grand jury and they'd indict you, and then they'd put you in jail just for disagreeing politically with the party in power. That was unheard of. Now we have that, plus we have attempted assassinations of people who are against the administration. This is getting to be a scary thing. I think Mr. Trump, whatever else becomes of him, I think he's going to go down in history as the man who held up his hands in front of the onrushing railroad train towards a police state here in our beloved America and said, stop, I'm not going to let this go on anymore. This is not going to become a police state under my watch. And I think he will get major props in the history books for that. He stood up for the Constitution. I haven't seen anyone else do that for quite a while.
All right, and you've been to many White House events. What is your reaction to this very serious security lapse which allowed that 20-year-old guy get on that roof there with a rifle? And even though people were shouting, he's on the roof and he's got a gun and all that, and an hour went by and nothing was done about it.
And my reaction is that Mrs. Cheadle, or Miss Cheadle, whatever she is, should be indicted for a lapse in her duties, which is not just civilly actionable, but is a crime. I mean, if you act so negligently that you are inviting the murder of the sitting president, I think that goes beyond losing your job. And people are saying, Mrs. Cheadle or Miss Cheadle, resign. No, I think she should be indicted. She's done some really seriously wrong things. I think if she opens the door wide enough for some crazy kid to step through it with a gun and come within millimeters of killing the man who's likely to be president, I think something pretty darn serious should be happening to her and the people under her at the Secret Service. I mean, this is really, really serious. This has got to stop. I mean, we've gone way too far down the road towards this becoming a police state. Time to slam on the brakes, turn around, and go back to the Constitution.
On there live with the one and only Ben Stein. Obviously, a lot of geopolitical concerns at this moment, too, Ben Stein, involving Ukraine and Russia, Hamas and Israel. And And China, of course, also. Are you concerned that our adversaries might take advantage of the situation? I think the point was made over the weekend by someone who said that President Trump is running against a machine at this point. There's question as to who's actually running the show in Washington at the moment. Are you concerned about that?
Very much so. Very much so. I don't think Mr. Biden is sufficiently awake and alert and conscious to have orchestrated this kind of nationwide conspiracy whereby the people who disagree with him and the Democrat Party get put in prison or else an attempted assassination is made against him. I don't think he's even close to that level of competence or evil to do that. I think there is a giant national conspiracy going on, and I don't know who I would trust to go after it because I have the horrible feeling that the FBI is involved in it. I mean, we have seen a taking down of the prestige of the FBI on a scale that I don't think any of us would have considered possible.
The point was made during those hearings today that we didn't hear from the FBI or the Secret Service or the Justice Department following this dramatic assassination attempt of the former president. The silence has been deafening, don't you think?
Absolutely stunning. 6, 7, 8 days, and not a word out of them. No briefing, no charts connecting this person and that person. And for a long time, they're saying we have no idea where this guy came from. Then all of a sudden, they discover he has 2 or 3 foreign bank accounts. What the heck is going on here? The law enforcement apparatus of this great country has simply stopped functioning. And even now, Frank, it's been more than a week, and they're still not getting a briefing about what happened. Why is that? And why is the Congress putting up with that? I mean, the Congress, yes, they were upset today, but they're not yelling and screaming about indicting Ms. Cheadle for gross dereliction of duty amounting to a crime. Why not? I mean, something very, very serious took place.
The one and only Ben Stein for our Frankenstein conversation, a serious one today. Ben Stein, thank you very much for fielding all of the questions here and for your assessment of these important events here. Thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
It is my honor, sir, and God bless America. Let's hope something's done right for a while.
Thank you very much. The one and only Ben Stein, Frankenstein Live, 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. Good afternoon. A winning day for the stock market to kick off the new week as the political winds of change continue to blow around us. The Dow up 128 points, settling at 40,415. The S&P 500 at 59 at 5,564. And the NASDAQ up 281 points at 18,007. The yield in the 10-year note, which impacts the fixed-rate mortgage rates out there, is at 4.26%. Turns out borrowers fell behind in paying their mortgages in June, pushing delinquencies up to the highest we've seen in 6 months. According to one report today from Intercontinental Exchange, the national delinquency rate rising 14.5% in June from the month before. In June, the number of borrowers missing a single payment rose by nearly 20%, the biggest increase since May of 2020. Serious delinquencies, which refer to payments on outstanding loans due past 90 days, were up more than 5% in May. But they said they were still down 8.5% from a year ago. The top 5 states where the serious delinquency rate was the highest, by the way, were Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, Arkansas, and Indiana. The uptick in delinquencies appears to be the result of how the data was collected, though, rather than a genuine reflection of homeowners in distress, as the national delinquency rate jumped in June, partly because the month ended on a Sunday and payments made on the last day of the month were not processed in time to be included in the latest data set, according to the folks that put that together. CrowdStrike still in the spotlight, and the fallout continues following that massive IT failure last week. With the airline still impacted, CrowdStrike holding Class A shares tumbled another $41 today to $263 and change. Microsoft, meanwhile, moved higher by nearly $6 at $442 and change. We've seen quite a move in the cryptos lately here, with Bitcoin pulling back about 700, back to 67,517 after a big move over the weekend. Ethereum down 43 after a recent pop, right now at 3,444. And Doge has moved back up to 14 cents. The Magnificent One, NVIDIA, participating in today's rally, up nearly $6 at $123 and change. Apple pulling back 35 cents at $223.96. And now the latest news for you here on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KABC. Financial markets getting the week off to a positive start following all the big announcements over the weekend. The Dow coming in for a closing gain today of 128 points. The S&P 500 of 59. And the NASDAQ rebounded nicely today, up 281 points. And the yield in the 10-year note is now at 4.26%. The changing political winds have businesses and investors adjusting their sails these days. Big difference in tax policies between the Republicans and the Democrats, with former President Trump vowing to lower taxes. Democrats under President Biden vowing to raise taxes, and now Biden endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris, the presumed Democratic Party frontrunner for president, now that President Biden has announced over the weekend his decision to stand down in the upcoming November presidential election against former President Trump. Let's bring in Grover Norquist now, president of Americans for Tax Reform. Grover, thank you very much for taking the call. First of all, your reaction to the epic news over the weekend.
Well, it was a big deal. The collapse was so quick. Today, Kamala Harris showed up at the headquarters in Delaware that once belonged to Biden, along with two of Biden's top people, and said, "We're running this campaign now." And she took it over at the top. And when they raised a bunch of money, they raised $81 million, they say. I presume that's correct. That was her way of saying this debate, this discussion, this, if not Biden who, is over. There are fissures that it will take us a while to figure out what happened inside the Democratic Party. The Clintons, remember, who were mad at Biden because Biden had been, they thought, with them, and Biden was one of the first establishment Republicans to leave Hillary, or to not support Hillary in 2008, to jump in for Obama. So the Clintons really, really don't like Biden. And so the fact that they were the first endorsers of Kamala Harris, as the new unelected head of the party, which doesn't have any delegates of her own. I mean, this is all by assertion here. And that is and where's Obama, right? Obama, we heard, was really secretly running the Biden administration with all his former staffers there. Not really. When Biden stepped aside, nobody was asking Obama who should be next in place. Very, very interesting. And I know the Democrats, who know each other better than I'm familiar with who hates who and why. There is going to be a clear collection of outs and ins going forward on Kamala Harris. And there's a good chunk of the Democratic Party that really isn't going to want her to win. Because if she doesn't win in 24 this year, the White House is open, and there are 10 Democrats: Governor of California, Governor of Pennsylvania, Governor of Michigan, Governor of Colorado, Governor of Minnesota, Governor of Illinois. All these people look in the mirror and think they should be president. Governor of of Kentucky. There are a lot of people out there that would really like her to fall down the steps and not win, so that they could run in 4 years. If she succeeds, then it's 8 years. And who knows who she picks as vice president, who might get first place for the next shot. A lot of people's careers are going to disappear.
Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform. And as the New York Post noted here, it said operatives at the very highest levels of the Democratic Party threatened Joe Biden with forcibly removing him from office unless he stepped down what they described as a well-orchestrated palace coup to stop the faltering president seeking re-election has been in place for weeks. Unprecedented times to see all of this here after President Biden received, 14 million votes in the primaries. Now he's standing down. And what do you see ahead on how this convention is going to play out, and who ultimately will be on the ticket? Well,
it certainly looks like a coronation for Kamala Harris. I think she's grabbed all the the heights, the radio stations, the airports. She's got it. She will pick a governor in order to carry, say, Pennsylvania, maybe the governor of Pennsylvania, or the governor of Michigan, any number of people, or the governor of Kentucky, maybe a senator from Arizona, to cherry pick. Vice presidents can't usually do very much for you, but you could if you picked them in one state that was a swing state. You might be able to get that person to carry that state for them. So that makes a great deal of sense. And it's, for a party that said they were organized around defending democracy, they certainly haven't made any decisions in the last several weeks with anybody voting.
On there live with Grover Norquist, turning to your expertise now, tax policy. Certainly, we've seen and talked about the big difference between the GOP and the Democrats when it comes to tax policy. Given the changing Democratic ticket now, what do you see ahead?
Well, she is for every single tax increase that Biden was for. She wants to take the capital gains tax up to 44.6%, so that in California, that's over 60% capital gains taxes. Imagine what happens to Silicon Valley with that. She wants to take the corporate rate up above China, higher than anyone in Europe, as does Biden. She also wants to add a tax on financial transactions, like when you move money in and out of a bank. It's just pennies on them, but it raises trillions. So, a lot of money moves around between banks and so on. A lot of people buy stock and so on. You have a little bit of a tax on every one of them. It really adds up. She wants that second death tax to include all the inflation during your lifetime. Make sure you pay capital gains taxes on that. She wants a carbon tax. She wants to ban fracking. At Americans for Tax Reform, ATR.org, our website, we have a list of her videos of her saying, and I'm going to repeal the entire Trump tax cut, which means the per-child tax credit, the doubling of the standard deduction, faster depreciation for business investment, all of these things, smaller and lower taxes for small businesses, pass-through companies. She has got a tax addiction that she is for any and every tax that you've heard discussed. It's amazing the level of things she wants to tax.
We're on the air live with Grover Norquist, the president of Americans for Tax Reform. Today, the Secret Service head was grilled on Capitol Hill, and now a lot of discussion about the budget of that government agency, the Secret Service, given the epic failure, what we saw there with the attempted assassination of President Trump recently. What do you think is going to happen there with the Secret Service following this disastrous hearing there today?
Oh, I think that they are going to be loath to fire the woman who deserves to be fired. But it'd be one thing if the woman who runs it had come in and started saying, we're going to clean this up and telling the truth. Evidently, we need to know more about this, but it sure sounds as if the Trump people had asked for more support and kept not getting it. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whose relatives, many of whom have been murdered by assassination, the Biden people, out of sheer spite, and this woman who runs the Secret Service is the one who signs the decision, you will not have security. I saw Robert F. Kennedy Jr. speak at Freedom Fest, the Libertarian Free Market conference in Vegas about a week and a half ago, and he had local cops protecting him, not Secret Service. Can you imagine how small you have to be to say, I don't like this Democrat running as an independent against me. Why don't we do this? Let's not give him Secret Service coverage.
Grover, thank you very much for coming to the line on all this, and we'll be in touch on more epic news, I'm sure, that's coming down the pike here. Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform, live with us here this afternoon on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KABC. No Perry Mason today in court. No Law and Order. No L.A. Law. Yep. technical disorder in the courts today in Los Angeles, with the LA County Superior Court, which happens to be the largest trial court in the United States, shut down today as it tried to recover from a ransomware attack on its computer systems. Meanwhile, the fallout from the massive outages because of the CrowdStrike botched security update on Friday continues, grounding flights, impacting retailers, call centers, and other emergency systems nationwide. CrowdStrike doesn't have to shell out anything more than a simple refund, according to the security company terms and conditions, but expect a lot of lawsuits over that fiasco. By the way, the shutdown of the LA Superior Court system, they say, had nothing to do with the CrowdStrike software update that paralyzed Windows computers around the world. Let's bring in our legal now on all of this, and that is the one and only Royal Oakes, longtime 790 KBC legal analyst and also host of the Too Many Lawyers podcast. Royal, wonderful to have you with us. Give us your reaction, first of all, to this technical mess we're experiencing here.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Boy, what a weird coincidence. When I heard the LA Superior Court system was shut down, then they said, oh, it's unrelated to the CrowdStrike. Really? So two very weird independent problems. So the Superior Court will probably be back up and running pretty soon. That just shows how dependent we are on computers. We can't even have a day in court without them. But the bigger news, as you've been reporting, is this CrowdStrike deal. I mean, 5,000 flights were grounded, Frank. 911 lines were glitched. Patients couldn't access their medical records. $1 billion in damages is likely. And on this issue of damages that you alluded to, when folks would sign up with this company, CrowdStrike, for security software, they had to sign a deal that said, well, if things don't work out, we, CrowdStrike, will give you your fee back. We'll give you your money back. So no lost revenue, no other money damages. But huge companies like airlines and hospital chains, some of them may have negotiated unique different terms in their contracts. So at this point, we don't know who is going to be left out in the cold, but very likely CrowdStrike, as to most of their clients, will not have to pay the big bucks. But of course, they're taking a huge hit to their reputation.
That is very interesting. Remember, during the COVID days, people turned to their business interruption insurance and were turned down because the insurance companies claimed it was an act of God. Is that a similar situation here, where this provision here will protect this company?
Yeah, there is going to be a big fight. So a lot of companies do buy cyber insurance. And the deal is, they don't have to worry about ransomware or other technical glitches. But business interruption is normally covered by these cyber insurance policies. So if a client is hurt by a cybersecurity company and they can only get a refund, then their additional damages are covered by their policies. But here's the catch, Frank. Some of these policies only cover intentional, malicious events like hacking. Well, this apparently was a big mistake. It was just bad code in a software content update. So it's not clear that your cyber insurance claims will be paid, but at least you got to submit them, see what happens. And similarly, if you don't have a refund clause in your contract, if you're one of the bigger companies, you may be able to get more of your damages. This is a $73 billion company, CrowdStrike, so they should be able to help out.
Big mistake, borrowing a quote from Julia Roberts in the movie where she was turned away in that boutique years ago. Big mistake.
Pretty Woman,
yes.
Yes.
That's it. That's right. You just reminded me of that. So this is really something. So what is your guidance for business people who, I was at a store over the weekend where they were still wrestling. Apparently they only had one computer terminal that could accept payments, and apparently somebody else had to work on the others. So they're going from one computer to the next. What is your guidance from a legal standpoint on how businesses should be reacting to this?
Yeah, as I was about to say, from a technical standpoint, I would be about as much help as a monkey trying to do Shakespeare.
I know better than that.
Yeah, but what people need to do is take out their policies of cyber insurance, read the fine print, get a lawyer if necessary, submit a claim, and see what the cyber insurance companies say. The other thing is watch to see if there are class actions being filed. A lot of folks are inclined, I'm sure, to sue CrowdStrike, and maybe you get in on that action because maybe you're a legitimate part of the class action.
Right, and certainly, if there were actual physical injuries to people because of this, that would be another matter, right?
Absolutely. That would be another thing to sue for if you can get around that clause. Now, the SEC is scrutinizing this, of course. It's likely we'll see lawsuits by shareholders of CrowdStrike for malfeasance and reduction in their stock value. The SEC is almost certain to conduct an investigation. And because CrowdStrike is publicly traded, Frank, they have to fill out special reports with the SEC within a few days explaining to the governmental entity exactly what happened.
Very, very serious matter. Still, the fallout continues, and we'll continue to stay on it on all fronts, legal as well as technical. Now, getting back to this situation here in the L.A. Superior Court system, have you ever seen a situation where a technical matter such as what we're seeing there has led to the shutdown of the entire system, the largest trial court system in the United States?
No, I've never seen anything like this. We're so dependent on it. I will say that back on 9/11, I was scheduled to argue a summary judgment motion. The opponent was the legendary Tom Girardi, and my wife said, "Don't bother to go downtown. You know, the court's not going to be open." I thought, well, what if Tom shows up and I don't? So, of course, I drove downtown. It was a ghost town. The courthouse was totally shut on 9/11. But we had the hearing the next day. So, yeah, things can shut down the courts, but I've never seen anything like this in terms of a computer snafu. This is pretty unprecedented.
Right, and apparently, from what we understand, a ransomware attack, which has also impacted the My Jury Duty portal, for example. So it must be a real mess there, and I guess it remains to be seen whether things will be back to normal tomorrow.
Absolutely. It's just going to be a day-by-day thing. It's weird to me, not being a techie, Frank. Why can't we just send stuff up into the cloud, which we already do, and sort of segregate it so that if some hacker comes along and gets into your system, you can still say, everything I have is duplicated in the cloud, and you can't get to it because there are sometimes access controls on the cloud. But apparently it's not as simple as all that, but I'm sure this crisis will motivate people to try to solve that problem.
Well, thank you very much for taking the call. That's our legal eagle, Royal Oaks, longtime legal analyst here in 790 KBC, also co-host of the Too Many Lawyers podcast. Mottek On Money, 790 KBC. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang. I'll be back with more at 4 tomorrow afternoon right here in 790 KBC.
You met Lala Kent on Vanderpump Rules. Now Lala and her friends share everything on Give Them Lala.
Ocean now knows the name of the baby.
No Amazon lines for that
impromptu.
one.
No. She's going to leak it.
Oh, if she tries to, I'm not letting her because she will leak the name.
Yeah, and she says it.
She goes, "This would look so great for baby S."
Little baby Stephanie? Stephanie? No. People are still guessing. The most recent was Stone.
Oh, that's the name of my son.
Stone.
Watch what Lala is talking about on YouTube or search for Give Them Lala wherever you listen.